Hey everyone, it's Mike Andes here, and today you're going to be getting the full consulting call with Dylan from Urban Roots Landscaping down in Tacoma, Washington. He's growing his lawn care business very quickly. He's needing a new shop space though because his neighbors are very unhappy with him trying to cram all of his trucks and equipment into their alley and into his garage. So today we're going to talk about getting that new shop space and the parameters that he's going to need to really scale the business up next year, where he's going to go from probably $300,000-400,000 revenue to $600,000, $700,000 or $800,000 in annual revenue, using the fact that he's going to have his managers helping with sales and admin. So we're going to talk about this because this is the last episode of Business Bootcamp, the last call that I have with him. So going forward, he's going to have to implement these systems and these procedures that we've talked about. So if you want to see the actual episode of Business Bootcamp, check the link out in the description. Otherwise, this is the full consulting call with Dylan Moy from Urban Roots Landscaping. Here we go.
Let's go.
Hey, how you doing?
You're starting to blend in with your wife's cushions and pillows.
I know, there we go.
Getting a little freaky on me, bro.
Happy Halloween.
Yes, sir.
Good.
Good stuff. All right. Well, I've been got in trouble for all my 30-minute Zoom calls, so I have to shorten things down. So let's jump into it.
Let's go.
How has it been trying to find a shop space? I know that was something we were thinking about last week. Have you been able to look around, get any good leads, any good spots at all?
Yeah, not really. I visited, I think, 3 sites. One was like 2/3 of an acre, just not enough. Another one was close to an acre, or the other 2 were close to an acre, but just very sketchy area, to be honest. It just wasn't like, one guy was running he's doing a good thing for the community, but like homelessness type, he's trying to really get whatever revenue he could out of it. So he was helping marginalized people, mentally ill people on the same property. So it just wasn't the best fit. And he was transparent. He's like, yeah, we've had people come back and kind of prowl things around here, like former residents. So just not great. So that's the tough part, because Tacoma, we have a few areas like a little bit east that they're bigger plots of land, but it's not the best area in terms of crime. Then we have over the bridge, which is probably not going to work because the bridge toll, that's 12 minutes away. Then we're looking at going all the way to Graham, which is like 45 minutes away. So it's just very tough in terms of finding something that's going to fit. And the leads have really died off. When I posted the Craigslist ad, I hit up like every group I could on Facebook, and I'm not getting any leads the last 2 days, 3 days. So I was wondering, have you guys ever posted like a paid ad to find a space? Can that be done on Facebook to kind of boost something and try to put the word out more? But I've even had my own clients say, oh, I saw your picture, you're looking for space. So, people are seeing my posts,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I wouldn't worry about it. Like, honestly, even the fact that in a week you've seen 3 properties is amazing. In the past, we've waited between 3 and 4 weeks to find a good spot, and I've only ever looked at 2 or 3 locations. So the fact that you get that much response is pretty good. I would probably post on those same things like in a couple weeks.
Okay.
But what'll happen is, like, obviously a lot of those people on those listings and those groups aren't necessarily watching every single day. So you'll get a random one, pop up in a few days.
Yeah.
So I'd be patient with it. 3 in 1 week, honestly, is really, really good.
Okay.
I've actually never looked at more than 3 before making a decision. The one with 3/4 of an acre being too small, was there other factors? Because 3/4 of an acre is fairly sizable. Was it just kind of a weird kind of setup though?
So again, all 3 had issues with crimes. She told me her neighbor down the street has, but part of the acreage was septic, so we couldn't park any trucks there.
Got it.
So really, like, it wasn't truly that much. It was like only 1/3 of an acre that we could actually use.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, just keep the search for that on. I know, especially as you're going throughout the winter, what can be somewhat tempting is like, okay, we're not getting as many leads, and revenue is declining, but you have to be confident, especially with the plan for marketing next spring and the growth trajectory, especially having Michael and Jose in those positions. Like, you're going to need the space. And the last thing you want to do is in the middle of spring rush be capping growth because you can't get more trucks in where you're currently at.
Yeah.
So like, don't let that be a temptation, because it will happen. Like, you'll come into like November, December, things slow down. You're like, okay, maybe we can make it work one more year. And
No,
you have the capital grow, like, just go do it.
I'm all in. I'm going to make it happen. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And Michael and Jose, as time goes, I just feel like they're even more all in. So we're talking a lot about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think too, having the space is helpful for the employees to see like just the, the fact that it's a little more permanent. It's not at your house. There's a lot of cultural benefits to having a shop space, but and again, I don't recommend someone do it from day one. But you having already been 300,000-400,000 revenue next year, I expect 600,000 to 700,000. You need the space. You got to get out of the house because it just makes it where your house, your personal life, and the business get too intertwined, and then the employees start to treat it like that, and you just become too common to them.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yep.
So,
No, I mean, that's going to be like my main focus, I think now. So,
yep. In terms of marketing, what's the plan going into spring? Obviously, we talked a little bit about the Google Performance Max. Last year, we really did not spend a whole lot on actual marketing. It's a few $100 a month. What's that plan look like in terms of budget and sort of trajectory of growth going into next spring? Obviously March is when you take off, but what's sort of that lead up in February?
well, kind of like we talked before, I think because my website's ranking pretty well, it makes sense to go more of the digital route. I was going to ask you questions, though. I'm using Performance Max. I did get a little notification that's like, oh, your costs went up 160%. And I was like, click here to find out why. So I think it finally was past the learning phase. And we don't probably have enough time to pull it up today, but I need to learn more about the metrics. And my question for you is, when do I decide that the cost per click or conversion, whatever all it is too expensive and I should shift gears to Google local services or Facebook ads or another medium?
Yeah, like I think the main thing is just tracking the number of leads that you're getting from there is important. The easiest way to do that is to put the conversion tag on the page that says thank you once they've submitted an estimate request form,
Okay.
knowing that that's not all of the leads, because they click on call now. The only way then to get them is to ask on every single phone call, where did you hear about us? So I would definitely recommend making that part of your process. I know it's a pain in the butt. I know it's easy to forget, but like definitely make that part of the process. And that is at the end of every call, after you got their information, be like, hey, by the way, where did you hear about us? And again, you're going to a lot of people like, oh, I've seen your trucks around, when really they clicked on a Google ad. So it's not the best conversion, like in terms of tracking that cost per lead, but at least put the conversion tag. And then I would say asterisk next to that. If you see your cost per click going above like $6 or $7, that's when it starts to become pretty excessive, because what you got to ultimately ask yourself is, let's say 1 in 10 people ask for an estimate request, whether it be filling out a form or giving you a call once they get to the website. Well, if you take $6 and you multiply it by 10, that's $60 cost per lead. And if you're only closing 50% of that, now you're like $120 cost per customer acquisition cost. Anything above 120, like it's starting to take you a month or two to just acquire, get the money back once you've acquired the customer. So that's when it starts becoming too expensive. So I'd use that as a kind of a rough benchmark, because I've seen, Performance Max be as low as $1 or less during spring rush, but I have seen it go to $4, $5 during the winter, just because demand's lower and there's going to be less traffic.
Okay. So yeah, just to finish answering your question, I suppose I'm going to experiment with Performance Max. I'll keep local services going. And I'll just have to see if we're able to kind of handle that. I mean, honestly, I was supporting at 1.6 people, and so I think in the spring rush for sure. And that's always I know you always say you get the bang for your buck. It's much more affordable to spend in the spring, but it just seems so counterintuitive. I have a hard time wrapping my head around it, because I just want to cancel all my marketing because I almost don't need it in the spring. But now I'm like, oh, I want to keep you guys busy. So that's tough.
The objective is keeping it as recurring services in the spring, right? It's exponentially easier to sell both projects and recurring services during the spring, but the goal is lock in as many recurring services and mowing as possible. And then what I would recommend doing is any projects that can be delayed by a month or two, book them out into the future, because the recurring customer is what you can sell throughout the entire year, as well as winter services throughout the winter months. And projects go massively up in the spring, but then they hit a massive down in the winter. Recurring is a little bit of a lull during the winter, but you can keep them a lot better. You could upsell them to other services and more maintenance driven stuff. So I'd really be recommending just spend your marketing dollars against recurring services. The other projects and things like that, you'll get with them when you try to upsell them when you're slow, right? So what we do is we kind of flip it, and that is recurring services during the spring is all we market. That's the only thing. I don't want to lock them in long term. Then when I slow down, I market to those customers for projects. And a lot of them don't even know we do projects until the time when it's like, we are ready to take on those jobs because the spring rush is over. And those jobs are typically less time sensitive, like mulch installation, patios, bed installations, tree planting, compared to mowing when the grass is 2 feet tall.
Okay. Okay. And I mean, I don't plan on expanding my geographic area. I doubled it from last year, but I don't know if you remember, I was only like a diameter of 2.5 miles, right? Now I'm double that at least. But I'll probably keep that the same and just continue to market to the same areas.
Yep. Nope. I think that's fantastic. And then you mentioned kind of Michael and Jose are even more bought in. Is that, do you think partly because of the conversations and then also the shop, just having the shop, knowing that that's on the horizon, they're kind of looking forward to that now?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of everything. I think it's they've had time to think about the profit sharing. Maybe the pay has a little bit to do with it, but it's just sinking in. Michael and Jose are talking to each other, having conversations that I'm not even having, and they're like really consulting each other, coming up with plans. Um, I'm really checking in with them, letting them know about the shop space. I think it's just a shift of like they see me moving in that direction. It's like the momentum is like we're going this way. So I
Yep.
think it's just kind of that momentum and yeah, so that's probably what it is, and maybe a little bit of the show too. I texted them the video and they were like, oh, this is cool, like we're on this business boot camp. So just all the factors, just creating kind of a new energy about like and raising the standard because I have been saying for like over a year, yeah, I need to get a shop space. Now I'm like taking action to actually I'm visiting shop spaces now. So it's like, whoa, this is real. And
Yep.
I'm talking very matter of fact, like, oh, when we get this shop space, or oh, I'm looking at these places. So I think it's making it more of a real thing.
And part of it too is just being confident in your vision. Part of it is you've always been very conservative in your projections, and that's fine and good. And that's why you have such good cash position, but also there it needs to be a sense of leadership and you're shooting for something. And that's what they're buying into, in my opinion. They've seen the numbers. So now they have the information of an owner. You've given them the compensation like an owner with profit sharing and the increased positional authority. And now it's a matter of you have a vision you're driving towards that they can buy into. And they actually see evidence of you fulfilling on those things. Like if you've been talking about getting a shop for a year and now they actually see it happen, like, oh, like
Yeah.
he's serious. Oh, like he actually is giving us authority and not holding everything to himself. Like that's what you got to keep doing as a leader, is just like give them the information, let them run with it. And then you just focus on the vision and growth, right? You've gotten past the part of working in the field. You've killed it. Like you've done very, very well in terms of the cash flow and stacking cash aside. You have no debt, like all that stuff is fantastic. Now it's like, it's a totally different brain shift now towards like, I empower them to do their job. And now it's like, I'm going to lead the charge with simply the vision of what I want the company to become. And that's what they're buying into. And next year, when they start seeing, oh, he actually delivers on hiring 4 or 5 more people, he actually delivers on a couple more trucks, we get a shop space. Okay, now we're doing twice as much revenue. Now we're thinking about, where do we expand and grow from here? Like that's the type of thing they'll buy into and stay with you long term. And I think that's what they're getting excited about, is actually seeing execution against the goals.
Yeah, and I truly believe. So my mindset, it's kind of like, what is that, paralysis by analysis? It's almost worse at this stage for me than it was starting the business initially, for whatever reason, because it was less layers. Like I didn't have an employee. I was like, it's just me and a truck, it's like, what's the worst that could happen? But now it's like, okay, I'm moving all my stuff away. I'm investing in a lot more. And the numbers just seem bigger with marketing spend and everything. So this boot camp, before the call is over, I just wanted to acknowledge that the boot camp has really helped kind of get me past that paralysis point of just being like, yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to get in a shop space. It's going to happen, to actually take an action. So I very much appreciate what this has done for me in terms of my motivation and my mindset. So,
And the big thing too is when I see someone like you, Dylan, that is conservative in their finances and makes good, solid decisions without just being flippant about things. That's the type of person that I know without a doubt, if they just put more fuel in the fire in terms of just execution and making decisions faster, they'll always lead to a bigger and better result. Like I was talking with our franchisee this morning on our mastermind. I said, look, if you believe that more than 50% of your decisions are the correct ones, just based on math, you should make as many decisions as possible, because you'll make the most distance in your business and in your success. And so when I look at someone like you, like, hey, let's say it's 65% or 65 out of 100 decisions you make are good for the business, that means
Mhm.
we should always make decisions quickly, because the more decisions we make, the more latitude we'll gain with the business. And that's
Yeah.
what I 100% would be putting on you. And that's what over the past 30 days you've seen is just like, I'm just pushing, like, go do it. Just go do it. Go do it.
Yeah.
If you just keep that mindset, it's not about making the right or wrong decision. It's simply about making the decision and seeing progress towards something. You might get the wrong shop space. You might hire the wrong person. You might have put Jose or Michael. They might not work out, but it doesn't matter, because taking action towards it with your caliber of skill and business acumen, you will ultimately making the decision is the right decision.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. And just want to get to all my questions. Do
Go
you
for
mind
it.
if I ask about
Shoot.
profit sharing a little bit? So
Yep,
I,
go for
I
it.
did promise my wife I'd ask about my compensation. Should I throw myself in there with profit sharing? We briefly mentioned it last week. So at what point does the owner kind of jump in on the profit sharing, or do we increase our kind of our weekly salary, which right now I'm set at 800 a week for my take home pay
What I would
for a W-2?
recommend is when you do your quarterly profit sharing for your managers, take your profit sharing then as well. Now, you're not going to be able to take every piece of profit sharing besides theirs, because you're going to need the working capital in the business to grow. So let's say you're giving 5% to Michael, 5% to Jose. Well, then there's 90% of, profit left over. Don't take 90%, maybe take 50%, because the other 40% needs to grow with the working capital of the business as it continues to grow. Does that make sense?
Okay, so 50% of whatever is left over, or a certain percentage of whatever is left over after paying out the guys to leave some for reinvestment.
Yeah, you will not even reinvestment, just working capital, right? Reinvestment,
Mm.
if you're thinking reinvestment and growth, that's when you might only take 30% of profit for yourself and leave the other 60% in the business for capital expenditures and working capital improvement. Like, working capital needs to go up, because as you get to 100, 120,000 a month in revenue, you can't just have 20, $30,000 in the checking account for the business anymore, right? That needs to go up, right? So I would say, if I was you, knowing that you're going to be growing pretty aggressively, I would probably recommend, 10% is going to them. Let's say 10% goes to your crew. It never ends up becoming 10% because they have to earn that 10%, and usually ends up being up 5%. So now we're not 85% of profit. I would probably take 35% of it if I was you, and then leave 50% of profit in the business for working capital, as well as for capital improvements that you're going to need, like trucks, equipment, etc. But that will put you on a growth pattern to still have money in the business to grow with that 35%. But then also have, 50%, and then the 35% will still be enough for you to be excited. Because if, next year you say do $150,000 in profits, if 50% or so of that is coming back to you on top of your salary, you're living a little more comfortably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And then so in terms of profit sharing, what if we go in the hole, right? Say we're investing a bunch in trucks or
Good
whatever in
question.
one quarter. Does that carry over to like subsequent quarters in terms of sharing? Is it like a cumulative thing throughout the year, and we tell the crew like, oh, sorry guys, we're still in the hole? Or is it like, no, like we start fresh at the end of the quarter, and then we share 5% starting fresh the next quarter?
We start fresh, right? And the reason for that is because the guys otherwise get disillusioned when all of a sudden quarter two, even though we were profitable, they don't get profit sharing, because then it just becomes like an annual thing almost, like maybe 2 quarters out of the year you're profitable. So we clean the slate. That being said, that really incentivizes making sure that during the winter you don't dig yourself a massive hole, right?
Mm.
So that's why it's like, get through the winter, really try to make sure you have winter services, you're getting as close to zero as possible. It incentivizes that behavior. And then also it's a matter too of like going into a quarter where you're crushing it. That's when you talk to your guys. Okay, guys, we got a lot of profit sharing. Let's go ahead and buy the truck now, so that next quarter, when we're going to be a little more skinny, we're going to go ahead and, not have that big capital expenditure in that quarter.
Okay. And what kinds of things have you done? So I've been really bad about tracking KPIs. Like truly what's kind of saved me is P4P, I think, is just making sure labor. I'm really tracking that because the system. But what KPIs should be kind of tracked maybe on a quarterly or monthly basis? Because they're going to have more interest now in how the business is doing. So what would you suggest in terms of just 2 or 3 things that we review and look at and analyze and see where we can get better?
Yeah, like ultimately the only thing, because like I know you're gonna keep a handle on fixed expenses, so I'm not worried about that. You're very frugal. The only other expense is labor that's variable, and that's what P4P is gonna help with. The only other thing that I really that does not help with is close ratio. And as they are involved with the sales side or like creating the estimates or even customer satisfaction, the two things you need to do is inputs and outputs. So input, you need to track the close ratio of your estimates, and output, you need to track the attrition, especially because Michael's going to be involved in customer service. And that's simply just, you can literally just on a whiteboard track the number of recurring customers you have and put how many canceled and how many were gained every month, like the red and green every single month, and then the net over the course of the year.
Okay. Okay. And what does profit sharing look long term? Because do you keep it at 5% for like those the office and Jose, and then in the next years it's like, well, we either grow the business or we get more lean and have more profits and raise, but then eventually they may say, well, I want like 10%, or I want, you know what I'm saying? How does that look long term? And does that only change when the roles change and the organization structure changes?
Exactly. So if they ever say, hey, I want 10%, that's when you say, okay, great. Here's the things that I need you to take off my plate for you to earn that. Right. And that's when that's probably going to happen in a year or two. But at that stage now, you need to start offloading. The same thing we're trying to think about and prepare for next spring is going to happen next year, when now you need to start outsourcing and giving off and handing off the actual estimate itself, like meeting the customers, that whole side of things. And so you're going to need that. I would not be concerned about that, because when that time comes, you'll be willing to give away more profit sharing in exchange for them taking more responsibilities. But by that time, that's the joy. That's a beautiful thing about business, right? That's where you want to be at, because then you're going to make the decision. Because at that stage, like, hey, I want to be in the business, I enjoy doing estimates. That's when you say, no, like, this is kind of where we're stopping, right? And that's your ultimate decision as the owner. But then it also opens up to, okay, well, maybe I give them more responsibility. I only show up to the office a couple of days a week, and I'm going to go do something else, whether it be another business or a second location or investing or whatever you want to do, right? Or it's a matter of you enjoy it, you stay doing it, but you don't have to be doing it. And, you know, they might leave you at that point, because that's what they're buying into right now, is the growth. And that's like, you know, I'm on this treadmill of growth because, you know, I have a bunch of people around me that if I stopped growing would probably leave. Right.
Yeah.
And so that can be addictive, but you just got to be determining what you want from the business. And that's a beautiful place to be in, is when you're now setting the parameters of what you do and do not want to do, instead of right now. And over the past 2 years, it's been the business tells you when you work, the business tells you when to show up, and you work like crazy hours to make that happen.
And what are the last things you usually delegate the office person?
Sales, the actual estimates itself, creating the pricing. That's the last thing. It'll be the last thing you do probably towards the end of next year. And if I had to guess, it's probably someone like, or potentially be Michael. And that is handing off the actual in-person, the creating budget hours. Like, that is the funnel, the top of the funnel that creates the whole infrastructure of the business, but creating budgeted hours. Right. And so when you hand that off, that's the hardest thing to do. It will, like, you'll literally have to, you might have to be on the boot camp to do it, because it's a matter of like, you just have to cut the cord, you have to trust the person, and you have to walk away and don't look at it. And so especially like June and July of next year, as like we get past spring rush, what's going to happen, you'll need to start focusing on creating systems around that, creating systems around the sales process, creating systems around the estimating, so that you can hand that off and it not fall apart.
Okay.
Cool. Hey, brother, it was great, man. It was great to connect with you again. And I'm sure we'll definitely be seeing you again soon.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. This helped a lot. I really appreciate it.
Good stuff, brother. Take care. Have a great weekend. Happy Halloween.
Yeah, same to you.
See you. Bye.
Yeah.